Can you guys flip it? So Candy worked on a very special project for DES. And how long have you been doing our ambulance building?
11 years.
About 11 years. Can you detail a little bit? Like how much time do you spend per shift?
So roughly per shift, I spend about, So roughly per shift, I spend about anywhere from 6 to 12 hours, depending on what I have to do. Whether I'm invoicing other volunteer stations, whether I am dealing with lawyer requests, doing QA on our actual billing to make sure that all of our reports are accurate and ready to be billed and there's no issues. And then I submit them all. I work very closely with the billing company every time I work to make sure that there are no issues and everything runs smoothly so that we are not lagging in our time that our bills are submitted.
So and Candy picked up on this job, basically, and I know Commissioner Moran remembers this, but we had that economic downturn, and we were told to cut 25% of our budget of our department. Candy kind of immediately stepped up and said, what can I do to help? And that's what she could do to help, and she has been doing it ever since. And has never asked for anything doing this extra chore. So this last year, the state came out with a program, which is the Emergency Services Transporter Supplemental Program. So kind of in a nutshell, what this is when we do a Medicare transport, we get about $100 per transport.
Guaranteed $100 a transport.
Which our normal transport is anywhere from $800 to $1,500. So we get very small payment with Medicare, and our two biggest payers are Medicare and Medicaid.
Yes.
So this program basically came out statewide. 15 jurisdictions applied for it, I believe. We were one of the jurisdictions that did apply for it.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you. We were invited to, they asked us to do it because we are considered the GEMS op.
The what?
Jurisdiction EMS Operation Authority. GEMS op.
God, it reads like a Tom Clancy novel.
Which is up there.
That's why you keep
That's why Wheatley's here.
If someone answers the questions.
So to qualify for the program, we had to be the operational program for the county, which we are the operational program. We have to provide ground transport to Medicare recipients, which we do on a daily basis. And we have to be enrolled as a Medicare provider, which we are. So Scott and me saw this and saw the application. We're like, we're never going to get this done on time. So we turned to Candy. And Candy is very good at bossing the bosses. And she got this project done. And for the first year, can you guys forward it one? This thing is not working. For the first year, she brought in a little more than $500,000 extra revenue that we were not going to receive if we didn't apply, which I think is
Bravo.
And we're expected to receive about $800,000 this next year, which she just started the project for this upcoming year about 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
And she forcefully made me sign some documentation so we could enter the program. But because of this, Candy, Scott and myself thought it would be more than appropriate to give you the Director's Award for the department, which is the highest award that the department gives out, for all your hard service.
Outstanding.
So that's for you. Sheriff? The sheriff is very impressed by that, so he is going to give you something to get a challenge point of the department.
And
They're
here's the
expensive.
county.
They're worth a lot. Don't put them on eBay.
The county one will get you out of a ticket if Gary gives it to you.
Thank you so much.
I said
No,
Gary
thank
gives it
you
to
for
you.
everything you do for the department. We appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
We're just bad at telling you that on a daily basis.
It's okay.
So if there's any medical billing companies give you a phone call tomorrow, you're not interested.
You never know.
I just made this public. Congratulations. On behalf of the taxpayers, thank you.
So, All right, so this is super, super overdue. We've given you updates on this more than once, and I'd like to ask Brian. So this is an aerial shot of our headquarters. So the dark top building is the Department of Emergency Services. The green top of the building is a two-bay garage that sits outside of our department, which used to house transport units, which is currently where Tony is. Tony's right there. That's Tony's radio shop now. And that's where we do all of our radio repairs. So what we ended up having to do, we had a huge renovation happen to our department. We had a new HVAC system put in. We had a new roof put on the building, and we basically redesigned the 911 center. But part of that redesign, if you can hit the next image, we had to move all the electronics outside of the 911 center and put them out to the garage. And this is only one rack of 12 racks that are in our server room that had to be relocated from our primary center and be able to communicate out to that garage. And the only thing that was run out to that garage before we started this project was electric. None of the communication systems were run out there. We had to move 6 consoles from our primary center out to the temporary center. And we had a couple choices. We could contract people to come in and do it, or our staff could do it. Our staff stood up and took the assignment and did it. And we estimate, because I asked Jim to help me estimate, and we estimate anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 to move each console if we contracted it out. But our staff saved that times 6 by moving it themselves. So because they did that, I would like Tony to come up here, Rob, Christine, Patrick, who could not attend tonight, and Susan. So you guys have to ask them a lot of high-level questions because I told them that's what they were here for.
Oh, great.
But the county, the department, appreciates everything that you did, and I don't know if anybody realizes the backbreaking job it was to move each one of those units from the primary dispatch center to the temporary center and move everything back to the primary center. Plus, we never lost phone system once, and we never lost radio communications once in both moves, which I find incredible because I couldn't figure out where the first wire goes in that mess. And these guys kept everything organized, and we didn't lose connectivity on anything at any given point. So, excellent job.
Thank you.
For the excellent job, we're giving you each a unit citation for what you did. So this is your unit citation. I think the sheriff has got 20.
This ballet, you know.
Congratulations, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You might as well just stand there.
We got some more stuff.
Here we go. This one is the board review. Just kidding, Major.
Questions they were going to ask.
You're gonna need a sign.
All right, can you hit so just so everybody has a view, that is the final product. That is our newly renovated 911 center. If anybody's ever interested in a tour of it, we're open for tours. All you have to do is call in advance, and we'll be more than happy to walk anybody through it.
911.
Yeah, get dial 911.
But Rob and crew shared no expense. Like, everything is color coded. You cannot find a wire anywhere into place. Everything is well hidden. And it, in my opinion, is probably one of the nicest 911 centers across the state of Maryland for the job that you did. But good job. The part that I left out is how demanding I am. And Rob said, that's what you asked for and that's what you got. And that's exactly what I asked for and that's exactly what you guys delivered, so fantastic. So, the last part of our update, if we can hit the next image, I'd like the sheriff to come up and join me. And you can stay. Okay. I want you up here with me. So, the next project, because Jim's sitting in the audience, has to be first in everything across the state of Maryland. And at times drives me crazy because we have to be first in everything. But we had an ailing computer-aided dispatch system, which was also part of our records management system that the sheriff's office uses. And it's kind of the backbone of their system, and the computer-aided dispatch is the backbone of our system. So the picture up there is actually, and he's probably going to kill me for putting that picture up there, but that's actually one of the sheriff's employees, which is Sergeant Russell. And Sergeant Russell started in dispatch with us, and that picture was probably taken in 1998. And if you look in the very corner above his head.
Well, today he still doesn't have any hair.
Yeah, he's still the same. He's a little chunkier now, but still the same. That was the first computer, and that console is before computer-aided dispatch, and that console resided in what is currently the basement of Public Works. And that's where our 911 center used to reside. So there was nothing computer about the system whatsoever. It was all cards. The computer that they had kind of sat off in the corner. Nobody knew how to use it. It had this weird operating system they called DOS on it. Nobody knew what to do with it. I think we had one employee in the department that figured out how to use the thing. But in the year 2000, we moved into our current center and went from that to a fully computerized system overnight, which was a big change for us. And that system lasted us 22 years and has done us well. Technology has changed, and unfortunately the company that we had didn't keep up with the technology change, and we really needed to change. And thankfully you saw that need and funded this project. What's hidden in all these updates that we've been giving you is the people that worked behind the scenes on this project. And this project started about 2 years ago. And everybody that I'm going to call up here started, I think, once a month on a conference call that turned into once a week, that turned into twice a week, that turned into almost every day before we went live with the system. And the group that is coming up has basically been with this from the start and really oversaw this project. Everybody in our department, I think on the sheriff's side, my side, and on the IT side, has touched this project, but this core group that I'm bringing up went the whole 24 months. And I would say they still have about 24 months to go to get the system working actually the way we want it to work, because there's still a lot of work that needs done with it. But I would like to call up Jim Elfring, which started to spearhead the system. Scott Wheatley, who was kind of overseeing the EMS stuff. Brian Will. Brian has been the main person that's been the brains of the system on our side and knows our CAD system inside and out. Michelle Miller, who was unable to attend tonight. Zach Yerke. So if you notice a computer inside of all of our vehicles, Zach is behind the program that runs on those computers, and he's still suffering a conference call a week over getting that straight and that functional for the volunteer system, for the sheriff's office, and for us. Phil English, First Sergeant English. You can come up. Phil, you have been the best partner I could ask for. You have been on every single call. You have, I don't know if the sheriff really realizes how much time you've invested in this system, but I definitely realize how much time I know he realizes, but your whole department owes you a huge thank you, because it would not have gotten off the ground on your side without your labor that you put into it. And I know you had a lot of personal things happen during this, but you never dropped the ball on this once. And I know our team appreciates everything that you did and want you to know that we do.
Been a pleasure working with all of you.
Yeah. Keep that thought. You're not allowed to lose that thought. Stephanie, is she out there?
He's going.
I'll show you.
Oh, no.
So Stephanie,
She wants to say a few words about this
You
too.
know, I'm gonna pass on that, thank you.
so on Stephanie's side, I think the brains of the sheriff's department stuff has gone through your hands through this. And a lot of the inputted data that had to be manually put in was done by you. And I think you were the sole person doing it, and you were the sole person on that side on every single conference call. So again, same thanks goes to you for all of the efforts that you put in on this project. Tony, a repeat performance, has been part of this from start to finish. Rob. Rob is kind of the IT brains that put our whole system together. So Rob was the brains that kind of did the prior project, and he was kind of the brains that made all the servers and computers work along with his team. But he kind of oversaw that whole thing along with Jim. So Rob, great job. Christine? So to say she's an applications expert in our department is an understatement. I think on a daily basis, we're still learning stuff, and you're still putting stuff together for us. And I can't tell you how much we appreciate everything that you've done on the system, and that goes as much or more for Patrick, who cannot be here tonight, and Susan, the server communicate expert, behind-the-scenes person that made everything talk to one another. Thank you for all your efforts and continued efforts for this. So this is the team that put this together. And if you can flip to the next slide, so that's the old system. And that's what the new one looks like. So it's a little bit of a change.
Hey, Sheriff, watch this. Watch what happens when it gets to Wheatley.
Keep my statistics coming, right?
Yep. That's funny.
Thank you. I'm getting there. That'll be our next update. So in closing, on this high-level update that we did, Todd, I want to thank you for letting us do something a little bit different for an update. But I thought it was really important to highlight these special people that have worked on all these projects that we've been updating over the last 2 years. Sheriff, can't tell you the partnership, how much we appreciate it.
You as well. Your staff is awesome, and every time we follow up, need something, we appreciate all that you guys do, so you should everyone do.
And Brian, you stole my best people. I'm gonna get even with you. But
We're still here for you.
but we appreciate everything you do for us.
Yes, sir.
And thank you for not changing what they really do, and they're still hip deep in everything, and we appreciate everything that they're doing for us. But you got a bunch of good people.
I fully agree.
Commissioners, I invite you out in 11 days to watch history be made.
We're switching to Next Gen 911 in 11 days. Jim,
Okay.
Jim,
Very good.
couldn't let that hit. But thank you very much for letting us do this tonight. I appreciate it.
Take care, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're good. Yep.
All right, have a great night.
Great, thanks, everybody. Yeah, good, excellent.
Stay cool.
Nobody will ever come with me to a commissioner meeting again.
Yeah, you've ruined it for
I think you
everybody.
tricked them somehow to get here, all of them. That's okay. Good job. Yep, all right. Thanks very much. Very nice. All right, Commissioners, we are right on time. Now we have a public hearing on County Ordinance 2203. And this is to eliminate a conflict between the State Forest Conservation Act and the state and local critical area laws. And I'll ask Patrick Thompson to come up and officiate the public hearing on County Ordinance 2203. Mr. Thompson?
Ready?
Yep.
Proceed.
This is a public hearing being held by the County Commissioners of Queen Anne's County, August 9th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in the County Commissioners Meeting Room, 107 North Liberty Street, Centerville, Maryland, to receive public comments regarding proposed county ordinance number 2203, a bill entitled an act concerning the repeal of section 18166 of the Code of Public Local Laws of Queen Anne's County, for the purpose of repealing section 18166 of the code, eliminating any conflict between section 18166 and provisions of the State Forest Conservation Act and the state and local critical area laws, and generally eliminating the regulation of woodlands in section 18166 from the Queen Anne's County zoning code. The proposed ordinance received a favorable recommendation from the Planning Commission at their June 9, 2022 meeting. All persons who wish to comment on the proposed ordinance may do so at this hearing. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. Written testimony of any length may be submitted on before the hearing date. County Commissioner. Copies of the proposed ordinance have been available at the County Commissioner's Office, 107 North Liberty Street, during normal business hours. All hearing sites are accessible to individuals with disabilities. Sign language interpreters and assistive listening systems are available. Part of the record of the proceeding will be the certificate of publication indicating that the notice of tonight's hearing was published for 3 successive weeks in the Bay Times, Record Observer, newspapers of general circulation in Queen Anne's County. And I believe this was a citizen-sponsored text amendment, so that petition, as well as the recommendation of the Queen Anne's County Planning Commission, will be part of the record. A couple of people have signed up. Barry, this is your amendment. Do you have anything you want to say first of all?
Yes, if Commissioners would like to indulge me, I'd like to give you a quick PowerPoint explanation of why I presented this.
Sure.
Okay, Barry Waterman, Centerville, Maryland. I'm neither an attorney nor a professional planner, but I am a user of the zoning ordinance. This particular provision has been problematic off and on for decades. This is what we're talking about. And you can take time to look at that, but that's not really what's important, that you understand exactly what it says. What's really important is you understand the problems that it presents. So before I start, I just want to make sure that everybody understands this has nothing to do with anybody in the current planning and zoning department. No one there has anything to do with this ordinance existing. There you go. It predates everyone. This comes from, those of you who remember Steve Ziegler was a planning director here 35 years ago. Prior to the critical area ordinance, prior to the Forest Conservation Act being adopted on the state level, we knew that was coming, and this provision was his idea on how Queen Anne's County could be exempt itself from those regulations. So this was adopted. Shortly thereafter, we, like every other county in the state of Maryland, had to adopt the critical area ordinance and the Forest Conservation Act. So the issues that have come from that, this was a standalone ordinance, and then other ordinance came and overlaid on top of that. And so when you update things in zoning, they're very complicated. The updates come at different times, and sometimes you get a confusing mess in the end. So there's two major problems with this ordinance. It's practically and legally confusing. And it imposes restrictions on Queen Anne's County residents that are, in fact, higher than the rest of Maryland. So it regulates woodlands inside and outside the critical area. The problem is woodlands is not defined in the Critical Area Act. Forest and developed woods are defined in the Critical Area Act. Subdivision regulations defines woodlands, forests, but not developed woodlands. Critical Area Act defines other things. And the Forest Conservation Act defines yet other terms. So that wouldn't be, it's not as simple as you might think. Because if they were synonymous terms, if they were all defined the same, there wouldn't be any confusion. And people could look at this ordinance and understand what it means and how it impacts them. So all three of these environmental acts protect things differently and define them differently. So these are just the definitions. In the Chapter 18, woodlands is a continuous area of natural vegetation, predominantly contains trees and other woody plants. A single tree is not a woodland. So now you're all clear on what is and what is not woodlands. Critical Area Act defines its part, limits certain coverages. If something's smaller than a certain number of square feet, it doesn't apply. It doesn't meet the definition. Forest Conservation Act defines them yet in a third way. So the question comes in, what do those definitions mean? What does it mean to be dominantly one thing, predominantly? What if the woody plants that are present in whatever you're looking at are invasive species? For my use and my impacts by this ordinance, it's much more impactful to me on small lots than it is on larger lots, simply because there's less space to work with. But I think that there may be other people who would have a different take on that. So the question is this a forest or woodland or developed woodland? I think we could all agree it's one of them, but I don't know which one it is. This is probably more meaningful because this is something that you might find in Queen Anne's County as opposed to something on the side of a mountain. There's approximately 20 trees on that half acre in that picture. There's 150 million blades of grass underneath of it. There's no woody plants. So what is it? Is it a forest or woodland, or is it a lawn? And who decides? This is a lot down in Kent Island Estates. The undergrowth is all tall grass and frag. They outnumber the woody plants probably 1,000,000 to 1, according to Google, on how many grass plants grow in an acre of ground. If you look to the right, that's a more typical lot in those communities. They've taken all the trees out. And the fact is that builders go into lots like this, they clear out what they can based on the limitations of 1-66, and then the owners move in and they take out the trees. If you look at this picture, in the foreground is a house that's 20 or 30 years old. It is directly in line with 5 houses that someone I know well built. And if you look at those trees in the distance, they come right up to the back of the houses. 25 feet at the most from the back of the houses are these 100-foot tall trees. The adjacent neighbor decides he wants to open it up to the sun. It does look good now that it's open, but nevertheless, all those trees are gone. And the fact is that most of the communities, smaller, older communities, they look more like the house in the foreground than in the background. So you have different interpretations depending on what ordinance you're looking at. So Chapter 14 has protections for trees, maybe not for forest, woodlands, or developed woodlands, but every tree is protected by the Critical Area Act. If you take a tree down, you have to mitigate for it. You have to replant, you have to do something. So there is protection there regardless of 16166. Forest Conservation Act specifically exempts clearing of 40,000 square feet or less. The State Forest Conservation Act and our local Forest Conservation Act understand that the smaller the lot is, the harder it is to not clear trees out and then have some economic use of the property. 18166 trumps the Forest Conservation Act, trumps the Critical Area Act, and puts another layer of regulations on what you can and can't do there. My contention is it's not necessary. Every county had to adopt the Critical Area Ordinance. Every county had to adopt Forest Conservation Act. The state approved the regulations that the county commissioners adopted here. And both of those acts protect trees, woodlands, marsh, or anything you want to call a group of trees, scrub, woody brush. 18166 is not necessary to prevent the wholesale slaughter of all woods in the world. It's the only place I'm aware of where our subdivision chapter attempts to impose regulations on property not being subdivided. We already talked about the fact that it's more impactful on small lots than it is on larger ones. Everywhere else in our code that I'm aware of, small lots get a break. Small lots can have more lot coverage than percentage-wise than large lots. Small lots get reduced setbacks from the street or from the sides. 18166 doesn't do that. This is a hypothetical half-acre wooded lot in an urban commercial in a growth area, but limited development area. The Forest Conservation Act says there's no woodlands on it because it's under 1 acre. Critical Area Act. Every tree removed has to be mitigated. So if there's 100 trees on this lot, you take 100 trees down, you got to mitigate 100 trees. Replant them on site, pay for the trees that you take down, but in theory, you can deal with the trees under the Critical Area Act and still protect overall forest in the county. If it's not in the critical area, forest conservation would not apply because it's under 40,000 square feet. But with 18166, you're limited to 20% of the trees can be cleared in the critical area, which would allow you to clear 4,300 square feet of a 20,000 square foot lot in a growth area where you're supposed to be encouraging growth. You just can't build anything viable if it was wooded, regardless of the fact that it is in a growth area and is zoned urban commercial. Down at Kent Island Estates, if you have a quarter-acre lot down there, it can't be developed woodlands because it's less than 1 acre in size. If it's in the critical area, every tree that you remove has to be mitigated for. In theory, not in reality, but in theory, you could clear all the trees if you mitigated for them and got appropriate permissions. And if not in a critical area, then you wouldn't be worried about forest clearing because it's under 40,000 square feet. But with 18166 in play, no more than 20% of the woodlands can be cleared, no more than 40% outside, and you're talking about a lot that's only 10,000 square feet. So if the most you can clear is 40% of a 10,000 square foot lot, you don't have much of a place to build a house, and you end up with big trees right next to the houses, which the bulk of the people who buy houses in those older communities, they eventually take the trees down. They rot, they do whatever. We'd be far better off to let builders take the trees down and make them plant a bunch of trees on the same lot than to leave scrub, crappy trees that have come up over time. So it's confusing. The ordinance is confusing. It's in contradiction to other things. It's part of, planning has a monumental task to update all of the environmental ordinances. I don't know how old they are. They're old. They all need to be updated, and this is part of that issue. And it going away, in my opinion, creates a clean slate that would make it easier to determine what the Forest Conservation and Critical Area Act should address in that regard. It's not been very consistently enforced. In fact, it's been unenforced for most of its existence. In my experience, this law was simply forgotten about once the Critical Area and the Forest Conservation Act were adopted. And then every now and then it comes back into play. Somebody remembers, oh wait, this applies. So that's not the biggest problem. That's just another issue there. But the reality is it's not accomplishing a long-term goal. If you want to have a long-term goal of protecting trees, let's plant trees. Let's make people plant trees. Let's not say you have to save a tree even though it's going to make your lot far less useful than it would otherwise be, and put your house and your possessions in danger of trees falling on it.
Can I stop you right there real quick, Barry? So there are situations that I've been aware of in my own community where the situation, just like yourself, they built the home, the developer sold the home, and a couple years later the homeowner cut the trees down. And then they got in trouble with planning and zoning because they got a tree down they weren't supposed to, and they had to mitigate it and put a tree back. So I guess my question is it's still confusing if you're saying the developer would cut the trees down and then have to mitigate it once the home was built, he'd have to find other areas on that lot to replace the trees that were taken down. Is that what you're saying?
That's certainly an alternative. You would be far better off from a safety perspective and an aesthetic perspective if you made me plant 25 trees around a house so that they could grow up and have a good root system than forcing me to leave trees that are up close to where the foundation was that may or may not be pretty solid.
Okay.
And the bigger issue is right now we have good people at planning. They're the ones who are going to make these determinations. There isn't enough clarity in the law for somebody to say this says this. It's all up to interpretation. But I don't know how long they're going to be there, and I don't know who's coming next, and whether they're going to be reasonable or unreasonable is just a problem. So that's what I have for you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, people who have signed up to speak, Frank Gialli and Nardo.
Commissioners. Frank DiGiulianardo, 309 Quail Run Drive, Centerville. My apologies for not having a PowerPoint presentation. I know we were going to do those this evening, but maybe I don't need to apologize for that given the hour. But I'm here representing the Corsica River Conservancy. We've submitted a document to you already. I believe you have it, but I have another copy here, Tom, if you.
You have it.
Yeah, we have it.
I'm going to give us the copy.
Thanks, Frank.
Of course, we like trees. But we're opposed to this idea of simply doing away with the Woodlands Act as a protection. You know, we just got through not too long ago a very involved, very expensive extensive comprehensive planning process. And in that process, you all recommitted to protections of this county's valued natural resources. And furthermore, to support the no net reduction of our forests. These are really important, and I think they were important listening to the many people who were involved in that comprehensive planning process, make their comments from the public. I think those resources were very, very important to them as well. The Planning Commission signed off on that comprehensive plan update. Excellent work from our planning staff. It's pretty hard to understand why the Planning Commission would forward this on for your consideration and approval, given some basic inconsistencies with this whole idea of doing away with the Woodlands Act and the commitments that are in that comprehensive plan. Your own technical staff did go through these various laws that Mr. Waterman just referred to. And they tried to identify specifically what additional threats there would be to our woodlands if we did away with the Woodlands Act as of right now. And I think, Mr. Waterman said he's not a planning expert. I'm not a planning expert, but those are your experts. I believe they're called TACO, or I like that acronym, especially on Tuesdays, right? Taco Tuesday makes me a little hungry. But we know trees are the most cost-effective tool that you can have to combat stormwater problems, to combat climate change. It affects our air, it affects our waters and tributaries, it affects our quality of life. And it may be that there is language to be cleared up between the current Woodlands Act and the other two laws that were referenced, critical area and forestry laws. But that's one thing to do, is clear up regulations and code. It's another thing to remove protections. And if I could just quote your technical staff, again, the TACO staff, these were their findings, and their findings to the Planning Commission, who then went ahead and moved this on for your consideration. 1, potentially more woodlands could be disturbed and removed with the removal of this act. Woodland provisions offer more protection than Forest Conservation Act. The woodlands provisions offer more protection for project approval within the critical area. Allowing greater threshold of woodlands removal that is consistent with the critical area law and the Forest Conservation Act would potentially allow for greater development in sensitive areas. Not the sort of thing that we should be considering at this point in time. So while I think it would be a good idea to review and simplify regulations, I don't think a good start to that is simply repealing an act that's protecting a very valuable resource to this county. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Annie Richards.
Good evening. I'm Annie Richards. I'm the Chester River Keeper from Shore Rivers.
Andy, where do you live? You live in Queen Anne's County?
I live in Kent County, but Shore Rivers serves
Yeah.
all these counties. Yeah,
Thank
yeah. I'm from 8355 Broadneck Road, Kent County. Maryland loses about 3,000 trees a year due to development activities across the state. The Eastern Shore's land use is 65% agricultural, and because of that dominant land use, we are one of the least treed regions in the state. Kent and Queen Anne's County are tied for the least treed counties in the state, meaning that the Chester River watershed is the least protected, least treed watershed that goes into the Chesapeake Bay in the state of Maryland. That's all according to data produced by DNR. Trees, as Frank said from Corsica River Conservancy, trees are the most cost-effective and long-term protection that we can offer our waterways in terms of improving water quality, protecting from nutrient runoff, shading impervious surface, and carbon sequestration as we deal with resiliency measures for climate change. Repealing Woodlands Provision 18.1-66 is not in the best interest of protecting our waterways, and which is an economic resource as well as an environmental resource to Queen Anne's County. This also seems to be at odds with the county's newly updated comprehensive plan, which emphasizes its rural landscapes and the importance of preserving its natural resources. Mr. Waterman submits that this provision, as it stands, is confusing and promotes erratic enforcement. And Shore River supports this county evaluating the language for clarity to make this more straightforward so that it can be a useful tool to protect woodlands in hand with development that will undoubtedly occur in Queen Anne's County. But to remove it altogether would result in unnecessary loss of woodlands, which in my opinion is a loss that Queen Anne's County and the Chester River cannot afford. I would also add that many Western Shore counties have regulations and provisions that go above state minimum requirements, even though they are not the least treed areas in the state. Kent County is currently evaluating its own woodland protections and is looking to its neighboring counties to evaluate their practices and comparing that to what they should make theirs. Right now, Queen Anne's County is a leader on the Eastern Shore for including zoning codes that go above and beyond state minimum. And I think that Queen Anne's County should decide to continue to be that leader in going above and beyond state requirements, because that bolsters your excellent comprehensive plan and continues to protect our waterways and woodland habitats. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
That's all I had sign up. Is there anyone else who's any public comment?
No problem. He's far more important than I am. He should maybe go before me. So. Good evening, Commissioners. Jay Falstead, Queen Anne's Conservation Association. I hate to start off on a negative note, but I do want to point this out just as a practical matter of fairness. Any ordinance that comes before the county, no matter what it is, you've got proponents and opponents, and they're each given 3 minutes. And so tonight, in something that is extraordinary, and I've never seen in my 20 years of coming to county commissioner meetings, Mr. Waterman's a friend, so I don't want to beat him up too bad, but he was given an extraordinary 13 minutes to make a whole entire statement, completely usurping anything that county staff might have to say. And I'm just saying, if that's the way that this is going to go, where a proponent is allowed 13 minutes, then I hope that you'll also give opponents an extraordinary amount of latitude. So I just wanted to point that out. Here's Queen Anne's Conservation Association's position on this. Ordinance 2203 originated as a text amendment and proposes to remove the woodlands protection provisions from the county code. The staff report makes clear that the result of doing this will be, and I quote on page 6, quote, removing the woodlands provision in its entirety would allow for a greater loss of woodlands and potentially more development, end quote. The staff explains that our own county woodlands law, which Ordinance 2203 seeks to repeal, is more protective of woodlands than the state's critical area law or Forest Conservation Act. That is a good thing. Queen Anne's County should do its level best to do better than what the state does, and we should make no apologies for that. Ordinance 2203 can be addressed, as the staff says, in the context of an update of the county zoning code, which is also on page 7. And that's about to happen following the new review of the comprehensive plan. The staff in their report says that our resource protection standards need updating, and they remind us that the comp plan calls for us to consider, quote, establishing a no net loss of forest policy for the entire county. The county commissioners, as you move forward on this, should insist in having presented to you a considered set of amendments that deal with trees and wooded areas in the county. That's what your staff recommends. That's what Queen Anne's Conservation Association strongly supports, and we hope that you'll do this, just that. And I just want to close on this. In this era of climate change, which is on the news every single night, we always hear about these tree planting initiatives. That's a good thing. But nothing does a better job of sequestering carbon, producing oxygen, and providing wildlife habitat than a fully mature tree. So for every one tree, mature tree that we cut down and we plant with 20, it's not doing the job that a fully mature tree is doing. And so on that basis alone, I hope you'll consider this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. Steve Klein. I'm the president and CEO of the Eastern Shore Land Conservancy, and I am a constituent, proudly a constituent of Queen Anne's County Commission here. Eastern Shore Land Conservancy would encourage you to allow the clarification of this ordinance in the context of a comprehensive relook at your zoning rules. As Mr. Waterman rightly pointed out, confusion is made when changes to zoning rules are made in a vacuum. And I would argue that further confusion will persist if those regulations are withdrawn in a vacuum. Given that the county staff, is about to undergo a full rewrite or a full review of those zoning rules, I think we would argue that this take place as part of that, and urge you to follow the wise counsel of your planning staff. I would also say that ESLC, who has 60,000 acres under easement across 6 counties from Cecil to Dorchester, is prioritizing our best forests. And I think people can get very emotional about trees and about forests, but not every tree is the same. Not every forest tract is of the highest quality. And as Mr. Waterman alluded to, there are many tree forested parcels here that are invaded with invasive species. And I think a relook at this, as Mr. Falstead said, there is nothing inherently wrong with having a stronger policy than the state. In fact, I would argue that's a good thing. But we should be prioritizing protecting our best forest tracts, our healthiest forest tracts. The average lot size owned by a forest landowner in Maryland is less than 15 acres. So these are not, there's not very many big parcels of intact forest land left, which makes them incredibly hard to manage. People don't want to manage a 5 or a 10 or a 15 acre piece of woods. So I would just prioritize protecting our best forests, our best intact forests and healthiest forests, restoring forest land so they don't look like what Mr. Waterman presented in some of those cases. And I would also argue for potentially some compromise here, a way to get at what will be good for smart growth, which is the development of infill parcels in growth areas, perhaps less than an acre, where this, we could strike some compromise that gets Mr. Waterman what he needs, or development what they need, but also protects forest land. So I would end with that. Thank you all very much for your service. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Linda.
Good evening. My name is Lindsey Dixon. I'm a local builder. Built probably most of the houses down in Kent Island Estates, where a lot of this comes into play. And I think a lot of things I'm hearing tonight are very common. Everyone's goal is to save trees and do what's best for the environment and save our rivers and save our county, as we're all residents here. But like you alluded to at the very end right there, if you have 50-foot wide lots, 75-foot wide lots, 100-foot wide lots in a 1950 subdivision that was never engineered, and we run sewer down to it and we expect builders to buy lots and build it, we start off the first 6 months when they're going to issue permits, and no permits are being issued because if you read the ordinances, no houses can be built that have trees on them, basically. So they address that, they come back. DPW is doing a great job when you go to build in between 2 existing homes that have been there forever, and they're limited to how many trees they can let a builder clear. And then all of a sudden, if you're just clearing the very minimum and you have 20 feet behind your house, you're building your house up so you don't have water problems. And then you're also building swales on the side of the lot so that you don't create issues for your neighbors. And then you run it out to streets that don't have swales or do have swales. You create a big water problem down the road where almost every one of our homeowners comes in and clear cuts the back of the lot or clear cuts half the lot. They don't build up the area because they don't know. They don't tie into the swales, and now you have a huge water problem for them and all their neighbors. So to clean up this tree issue so that builders can go in and put their foundations up at grade and create a nice grade lot that runs water off and doesn't create issues for your neighbors, and then have us plant trees, have us do whatever. We're all for trees, and if there's a huge tree that we have the ability not to take down, we'll do our best. But very flat lots with high water table that were never engineered creates huge problem and makes builders look terrible. And they call you guys up all the time. We have an issue. If you let us go in from the get-go, build it up, clear back to what's reasonable, give people a nice yard so that they don't come in and clear cut later and create problems for all of us later, it'd just be probably a good thing. So in the long run, we're all on the same page from what I'm hearing. We just need to clean it up so the communication's less, to get permits out quicker, to allow us to do what we do and have things drained properly and not create problems for our neighbors down the road. Thank you.
Do you have somebody online? Anybody else? Anybody else in the room?
Good evening, Commissioners. Tom Aid with Green Street Housing, located in Salisbury, Maryland. Green Street's the developer of the Village of Slippery Hill. Green Street has been recognized as a leader in sustainable design, and we pride ourselves on environmental stewardship. We exclusively develop property in growth areas. I'm speaking in support of the elimination of the code that we're talking about tonight. I want to share want to quantify the impact that ordinance had on the Village of Slippery Hill. It's known that Queen Anne's County is suffering from not having enough workforce housing. This ordinance limited the physical space that was available for development and ultimately limited the number of affordable or workforce housing units that were able to be built on the site. The site was 23 acres forested of a 24.8 acre site. Forest Conservation Act required that, or allowed the clearing of 14.7 acres of forest, and that would put 8.6 acres in protected long-term easement. This particular ordinance only allowed 9.4 acres of clearing. The end result was a delta of 5.3 acres in the growth area with high-density zoning served by public water and sewer that couldn't be used. 5.3 acres could have been more usable open space, could have been more workforce housing units, could have been more outdoor amenities for the project. Based on the density calculations of the conditionally approved site plan for the site and the proposed additional commercial component yet to be approved, we estimate that this 5.3 acres that's trapped by this zoning ordinance prohibited an additional 86 units from being developed. Thank you.
Yes, anyone else? You want to just put that in the record, or read them?
So we have four that were basically the you have four emails that were all the same. I can read off the names of the gentlemen after I read the email. So email goes, Dear Commissioners, I support the elimination of 18.1-66 from the QAC code. This provision has been a detriment to business, subjects the citizens of QAC to a higher burden of regulation than the rest of the state, limits density of development in growth areas, and accomplishes minimal, if any, long-term good. QAC residents should be held to the standards of the critical area and forest conservation ordinances and not to a holdover ordinance from before these landmark environmental laws were adopted across the state of Maryland. Thank you. And it was signed by Mr. Matt Alchi, Mr. Ray Perdue, Mr. Mike Leahy, and Mr. Charlie Moore. Now I have Mr. Aid and Mr. Waterman both sent an email, and I can read them, but since they spoke, I didn't know if you wanted me to read those emails as well.
We're good.
We're good, okay. And then the final one? Yes. The final email is from Mr. DJ Dawes of 101 Somerset Road, Stevensville, Maryland. Dear Commissioners, I am writing in favor of repealing Section 18-6.1-66 of the Code of Public Local Laws, As a local resident of Kent Island Estates, as well as the local realtor and licensed home builder, I see firsthand the negative impacts of following Section 18(1)66 when it is properly followed, and the ineffectiveness of the code when it is not enforced consistently. Lacking the ability to properly clear a small, fully wooded lot during the home building process has a negative impact on property values for new homes in the area. Most home buyers do not want to buy a brand new home with a backyard of only 20 feet of grass and trees after that. Home buyers are concerned of problematic trees too close to a house and worry about the safety of such trees. I have personally built a new home in Kent Island Estates and was required to leave trees due to this section of the code, and as a result, had a large branch fall through the roof of the home within months of it being occupied after a strong storm came through the area. The majority of home buyers do not want to buy a property where large trees are in close proximity to the home. Because of this, home buyers are turned off by the lack of sufficient backyard and the concern of the trees that are not willing to pay as much for the property. As a local top realtor, I've heard clients state this over and over again. This is especially true for small infill lots on southern Kent Island. As a builder, the truly frustrating part is when I am required to follow the Section 18(1)66, but shortly after settlement, I drive by the property and see that the new homeowners have disregarded the section of the code, possibly out of ignorance, and clear the entire lot of all trees. This renders the code ineffective. Builders are held to the stringent standard, while the general public does not seem to be. I understand enforcement may be difficult when permits are not being pulled, but nonetheless, this code becomes a double standard when enforced upon builders, developers, but not on Harry the homeowner. As a resident of Kent Island Estates, I see first the clearing of the small infill lots during construction. Quite honestly, the cleared lots are far more attractive than the overgrown wooded lots on the back section of many of these homes. The cleared lots hold less water, thereby becoming less of a mosquito breeding ground, and they allow more sunlight to penetrate the ground, which also keeps the lot drier. As a neighbor to the clearing of the lots, I personally value the additional sunlight, the drier lots, the effective removal of mosquito breeding grounds that cleared the lots added to the community. The wooded sections that remained on the rear of the newly developed lots and undeveloped lots tend to hold water and are a nuisance to the community. In closing, as a realtor, builder, and most importantly as a resident that is impacted by this decision, I favor the removal of Section 8(1)66 as it pertains to the residential building lots in the county.
Okay. Any other public comment? Any staff comment? Amy? Nope.
All right, we'll keep the record open for 2 weeks.
In that 2 weeks, I think Todd, if you could somehow have staff do some sort of presentation or enlighten us as to why their recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Board was unfavorable.
Certainly, we can do that.
I just for educational purposes, if you guys could put something together that we can understand.
We can do that, certainly. Mm-hmm. All right, I think we're good. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. All right, Commissioners, we have 2 other pieces of legislative business this evening. First, we have proposed County Ordinance 22-02. This is an act concerning the recreational vehicle parking in the Waterfront Village Center zoning district. It is available for introduction.
I'll introduce 2202.
Okay, Commissioner Jack Wilson. Then we have County Ordinance 22-10, an act concerning the revisions to the Queen Anne's County Ethics Ordinance, Chapter 8 of the Code of Public Local Laws.
I will introduce 2210.
Commissioner Jack Wilson can introduce both of those. We'll schedule hearings for both of those. All right. All right. Let's see. Moving on. Now we have our next presenter. We have Heather Tonelli from the Economic and Tourism Development. We have her presentation of the Rural Maryland Grant Fund, and we have a resolution and a letter of support for consideration as well. Good evening.
Awesome. Good evening. We also have Rebecca Lepter here. She works with us. She's our Economic Development Coordinator and was absolutely crucial in developing our application and going through the process. Couldn't have done it without her, so I'm thankful she was able to join us tonight. So we submitted to you earlier in your package a PowerPoint presentation as well as a list of potential projects, but I wanted to go through the whole process so so everyone understands how we came to this current application that you have before you. Governor Hogan back in February of 22 announced that he wanted to establish a $50 million fund focused on rural Maryland. And then we further found out that they decided to disseminate that monies through the tri-county councils, and there's 5 of them. So each of those councils will be, in the near future, awarded $10 million. Each council is comprised of 3 counties. We're part of Upper Shore Regional Council, and I know you're all very familiar with that. That includes Kent, Cecil, and of course Queen Anne's. On the first page, you'll see, what do I hit? Some of the parameters. So this was announced in February. They had to wait for the budgets to be approved. The final parameters came out, I think, on May 12th. And that's what you see here. And then we had a very quick turnaround to get it out to nonprofits and our municipalities. And so you'll see here that the main focus was infrastructure projects that would support economic development activity, stimulate private investment, and grow jobs. Those are the 3 key points. Ineligible projects included private sector incentives, so we couldn't do subsidies or grants or construction of facilities, that sort of thing. It was pretty specific, and in fact, up until a couple weeks ago, there was continued updates of the frequently asked questions and parameter changes. So thank goodness they didn't affect how we went through the project. So I wanted to talk to you about our process of coming up with the proposed projects. So once we were given the information, as I mentioned, each of the tri-county councils, we found out they were getting 10. Upper Shore Regional Council met, and they determined that each of their counties, their member counties, would receive $2.9 million, and then 1.3, the remaining portion, would be used for regional collective projects that would affect or benefit all 3 counties. While we were trying to develop the programming, it was basically left to each county and each regional council as to how they develop their programming, other than these overall parameters. Whether they did one big project or a few small projects, it was really up to each individual area. We did reach out to some of the other counties and some of the other tri-county councils. Many of them, one for example, is looking to get funding for a new business park. They already had the land, they're doing their roads and infrastructure, that sort of thing. One of them had a potential regional airport that they were considering doing, so each one is different. And so what we decided to do is we met with the commissioner liaisons that are part of the Upper Shore Regional Council Board, Commissioner Corcorino and Commissioner Wilson, to discuss the parameters to make sure we understood what those were. And we sent out a letter of interest request asking those towns through the Council of Governments and then some of our nonprofits that we felt may have some economic development projects, job creators. We sent out the letter of interest request, and then from that, we received $6.6 million in potential projects, or 21 different letters. And within those letters, some of them had additional projects. Every single one of them was a great project. Every single one of them, or applicants, were certainly impactful. They're great organizations or municipalities, so it made it even harder to move through that selection process. Upper Shore Regional Council was great, and they also took our projects as we went through the process and presented them to Commerce. They went directly to them, and they vetted some of our projects. Ones we thought that would work, they told us they would not, so that further whittled down the list. We then asked those that kind of made it past that section to actually fill out the full application. And we received those at the end of June. And we used the same grant review committee that we used for all of the COVID money. They worked well together, a true independent voice when reviewing those projects. And so that's the list that you see the final list here. They are making the recommendation to you as the commissioners for the final approval, because it's your final approval of the application before it goes to Upper Shore. We have to have these full applications for each project to Upper Shore Regional Council by this Friday. So it's a tight turnaround. So we've prepared a letter of recommendation or support for the commission if they so choose to sign, as well as a desk item resolution to sign to support the overall Upper Shore Regional Council's application. So we thought we'd go through, if you didn't mind, some of the details of the projects that were recommended through the Grant Review Committee, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have. And just a quick reminder of the breakdown. Full funding was $10 million. Each county's getting 2.9. And then for regional projects, which Upper Shore Regional Council will be presenting and preparing, is a 1.3. From some of that money, they are pulling some administrative costs, which is completely understandable because this is quite a bit of money to manage. So the first one that we wanted to share that was recommended by the Grant Review Committee was for the Queen Anne's County 4-H Park Association. And that was at a request for $1.2 million for pretty much a complete upgrade of their infrastructure, their park grounds, their electric, their paving. They're looking at handicap spaces, their walkways, water lines, upgraded broadband for Wi-Fi and cell phone use, and an improvement of some of their facilities so that they can use them despite whatever kind of weather, and just an overall upgrade. And the overall goal is to facilitate all the agriculture education that they currently do, as well as offer more, be able to increase agriculture-related events and a few other special events. But overall, it's 80 years this year for the 4-H fair. It's a very important cultural, historical property, in addition to the fact that it supports one of our key industries, which is agriculture. The current farmers as well as those that are coming into the agriculture practice. And in addition, if you think about during the 4-H fair and other events, they have outside vendors that come in, so we're supporting small business on that end. Through future events, we can see, potential hotel stays, spending in restaurants, retail, that sort of thing down the line. So that's one of the first ones and the largest one that we have on the books.
Oh, okay. So one of the next projects we have is we are looking at doing a strategic asset industry and industry competitive analysis. So coming out of COVID-19, looking at economic recovery and what does that look like. Queen Anne's County wants to be ahead of everybody else, and we think a study like this will really be a great tool for us in how to prioritize moving forward what those economic development strategies are. We know we have, our employers are looking for support with workforce development. We think this will be a great tool for that. And once we have the strategic asset and industry competitive analysis done, we're going to use that information to then have a strategic plan. We're going to use that and then implement all those strategies. So our current strategic plan is aging. It will be, I think we have maybe 2 years left on it, and it could use some new life. So that is our second strategy.
I neglected to mention that the funding has to be spent in 24 months. So Rebecca reminded me, she said that. And we do have a current strategic plan that will be, expiring. And much of it, was very relevant at the time. But as we know, so much has changed just in general. And then in addition with COVID impacts, just what kind of industries we can attract and what opportunities are there has really changed. And we hope to.
Can I stop you right there, Heather, and ask a question? Can these monies for these projects that have been selected, which glancing over them, are obviously all well-deserved and serve a great purpose in our community, specifically the 4-H park, because that fair is going on right now. And you walk through that fair in the next 5 days and you can see that there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. So my question is, these monies, can they be used for salaries to hire people?
It can. However, it can be used for operating expenses and for salaries, we have to make a very strong case as to how those salaries and those operating expenses will be sustained after this funding is over.
Okay.
And there are a couple projects in here where that is something of point, which we've followed up on to make sure that that's the case.
At one-time money and as opposed to
Right.
ongoing costs, okay.
Yeah.
And these are for shovel-ready projects too.
Yes.
So that was another factor as we were making those recommendations. That these have to be
Some of the
ready to go.
projects were great, but they
Yes.
were further than 24 months out. And so we had to stick with those that were really truly shovel-ready and not ideas that were come up with once they heard the money was available. You know, we really wanted to make sure these were already in queue. The next one we have is the town of Centerville wastewater treatment plant upgrades. They requested $700,000 for three, I forget, it might be four, but three different components of their wastewater upgrade that they are planning. The overall project is close to $30 million. They have requested funding for the other portions of that and are working on the remaining unfunded sides. But we did double check with Alan Quimby to make sure that the things that were in this plan could be facilitated and completed within 24 months. And we worked with the town to make sure that these components would remain once they do their upgrades. And it's in hopes that they will be able to further develop their current business park. And when they look at annexing lands, there's potential for, you know, future business development as well as housing development on that. So the Grant Review Committee suggested a grant of $500,000 for that. The next one we have is the town of Churchill. They submitted several projects, but some of those are certainly warranted, but they weren't necessarily shovel-ready. They were a while out, but this project, even Commerce felt was a great project. They want to erect a cell phone tower where their current wastewater treatment plant is to enhance their wireless communications, including internet and broadband in the surrounding areas, which will help the current businesses there, those that are working from home, and just the general residents to be able to have access. And that's just a fee of $10,000 to do that. The next one.
I will. So Upper Shore Community Development Partners is who we're looking to contract with and consult on offering a minority entrepreneurship training accelerator pilot program. So this is something that we don't currently have the capacity to do within our office, but we know that this is important work. And they will be working with up to 5 Black or minority sole proprietorships and giving them all kinds of support and technical assistance in budgeting, marketing, all kinds of support to help them. And this will be a great opportunity for us to look at that model and see, you know, what's working, what's not working, if it's something we want to continue to fund and look at in the future. So I think this is a...
And so the goal here is, after the year is up, that they've learned enough and have enough training that they can sustain their business on their own moving forward.
Yes.
And there's even a small grant component to it, a small micro grant to help with, I think, future expansion and or marketing as a component to that. The next one we have is Chesapeake College. They asked for several different programming requests. And I wanted to point out that the amount that you see here is not the whole amount that will be funded. They actually reached out to all of the counties that they support and asked for the same amount of money equally. And Upper Shore Regional Council has decided as a portion of their regional projects that they're going to cover Kent County's, a portion of Kent County's request and a portion of Queen Anne's request. And then Cecil is planning to also support their community college. So this amount of $141 is not the full amount that Chesapeake will get, but it's some great programming with their marine trades expansion. They're looking to do an advanced manufacturing technology program, as well as a center of innovation and entrepreneurship. Also noting that one of the components that we will make sure that's in place is the ability to fund these programs once they're up and running. I mean, the marine trades is there, but the expansion, once they get enrollment up, should be self-sufficient, and same with the advanced manufacturing. So this is kind of seed startup money, and these programs should be able to continue on their own.
Is it specific to just these trades you mentioned, the marine trades?
The marine trades, advanced manufacturing, And then the Center for Innovative Entrepreneurship.
Biggest new one they're adding is the advanced manufacturing, based on all this stuff that's come back from both Queen Anne's and Kent in terms of the need for people trained in CNC machines and things like that. They see where they'll fill the classes, so.
So the next one is for Queen Anne's County Public Schools. And this is very exciting for us because the program that we currently have there, our CTE liaison, Connie Dean, which I'm sure many of you know or have talked to, has been really successful for our department, and it's been great to see. And so this would be an expansion, a 2-year expansion of that, and this would allow for 2 career counselors to be placed in each of the high schools. And so they would be they would be dedicated to establishing internships and apprenticeships and working directly with the students. That would allow Connie to kind of take a different approach in her work, her overall work with the businesses. So this really enhances and expands the capacity of our workforce development initiatives and those business partnerships.
So they would be in-house in the schools. This funding would be for 2 years, 1 staff member at each school for over 2 years, as well as some infrastructure needs to get those career centers set up, upgraded, because currently there's not much there and they don't have staffing for them. So these persons would be guaranteed, dedicated to working with the students on career counseling and working with their businesses. And
So that gets back to my original question. This will be a salary to bring these 2 people on for both those high schools? Okay.
Well, we put the request in for a letter of commitment from the public schools to say that they will fund those salaries beyond the 2 years.
Okay.
Which they should be able to, with the Kerwin funding, when it kicks in 2 years, that the career and education path money has to be designated and spent on things like this. So that money will be there in 2024 to backfill this.
And they have indicated that they will provide a letter of commitment.
Permanent, so.
Okay.
So it'll kind of be seamless transition.
Okay.
All right.
Almost done.
Yeah, so the next one, just tell me if it's too brief, is the town of Sudlersville. So in working towards the comp plan is saying we're directing growth to the municipalities. Our office has been working very diligently to support the municipalities in getting ready for economic growth. The town of Sudlersville, in working with us, is also recognizing that they have limited capacity. And so they've applied for a consultant to help them with economic development and for a comprehensive plan, which is either out of date already or about to be. So this would allow for them to have some staff that they very much need, who is really focused on economic development and helping them move forward, making sure that the things that they need in place in order to be able to go after additional funding are there.
The next one we have is high fiber connection, or high-speed fiber connection in the Chesapeake Bay Business Park. This would be for the infrastructure only. Currently, there is, obviously internet connection through the business park, but they consistently have issues with speed and reliability. And so we've talked to a provider that is willing to run the fiber throughout the park to make sure it's high-end, and that will enable us to attract, high-end businesses that need high-speed capacity, that sort of thing. And they'll have to pay for it themselves. Normally, because there are some businesses within the park that do have the high speed, but they've had to pay for the actual laying of the fiber and all that additional costs. We're hoping to kind of take that burden away. And they, the business park does anticipate expansion for a few extra buildings in the near future. So
Do you know what their current occupancy percentages are now?
I don't know their occupancy percentage. It's high. It's 90 in the 90s.
Oh, okay.
It's in the 90s.
So they're already thinking about other buildings?
They are. They have them in the
Oh, yeah?
works.
Yeah, they can.
And it's
When they just came for allocation, that's when we'll go for their one of them.
They have another one ready to go, almost ready to go.
So I'll speak quickly on these. The Queen Anne's County Watermen's Association applied to purchase equipment for an oyster shell recovery and spat planing. And it's actually really cool and simple. You can see a brief picture of it. The technology's already been tested and
Next slide.
yeah. Oh, sorry. See, you don't hear. The technology's already been tested, and they're working with the individual that has this and is using it now to help them, develop it and do that in Queen Anne's County. The cool part is, they'll be able to do over 7 million, plant over 7 million larvae, which is a big number.
Right?
Yeah, that's part of the deal. This pays for that as well. So we're pretty simple cost and pretty amazing outcome. And then the next one was suggested by both our planning staff as well as the extension office. They kind of work together in coming up with the parameters for growing agribusiness in Queen Anne's County. They're looking from the comp plan, some of the information that came out of that is, agribusiness is important to the county, but to make sure that our codes are up to date and that we're supporting them and that everything works together. And this study will enable our county to do that in an informed way. So I worked with both the extension office and with planning on coming up with what the study would be, the scope of work, all that stuff. And then the remaining, you'll see the $37,000, that's the administrative fees that Upper Shore Regional Council has requested. So to finalize this process, we're happy to answer any questions you have about any of the projects. We would need an approval of these.
So
I don't mean to monopolize the.
I'm gonna go ahead and I'll make the motion on the resolution.
Well, I have just a real quick question. So for the folks that didn't make the hit list,
yes,
are there things that we can do for those folks?
Absolutely. The cool part about that grant review process is we had some very knowledgeable persons as part of that, and we know some grant stuff too. But they every single one of them, we came up with other financial solutions, and we've reached out to those individuals that applied that didn't make this round, and we plan to, as soon as we get this application out, reach out to them and see if they want us to help them find those other opportunities. But that's a great point. That's very important because they all were really.
Yeah, I imagine that was a very difficult choice. The parameters obviously made it easy for some of these projects, but you don't want to. You want to, the folks that got turned down, you want to be able to do something to help them out, or else they wouldn't have been reaching out to start out with. So, good.
I would like to make a motion to adopt Resolution 2211.
Second. Motion second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Now, do we have a letter to sign as well? So a motion to sign the letter of support for the $2.9 million grant to the Upper Shore Regional Council.
Second.
All right, motion second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, 5-0, that motion carries as well.
Thank you very much.
Good job,
Thank
you
you
guys.
for all of your work on
Outstanding.
this. Huge
Good
task
work.
in a very short period of time. Great job.
All right, Commissioners. Okay, we are now ready for our new business for this evening. If you want to turn to tab number 2, we have a couple of items for the Department of Public Works. They're up first. So if you want to go to, again, tab number 2, item number 1 on page 1 is a public works agreement for the Bridgetown Development Sand and Gravel Mine major extraction operation. And this is essentially if you want to say, a host community agreement. They're going to provide 12 cents per ton payment for all sand and gravel materials sold back to the Department of Public Works, County Roads Division, for maintenance on county roadways that are on their haul routes. So that'll help us maintain that area.
I move to execute the Public Works Agreement with Bridgetown Development Company, LLC.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion?
You're saying 12 cents a ton? Is that what you said?
12 cents per ton payment, yes.
Right. And this is what did I read? It was 40-year life cycle. So is there an accelerated clause in there, or does it say 12 cents in 40 years from now?
Good evening, Commissioners. That 12 cents per ton is per ton, period, whether it happens all in 1 year or over the course of 100 years. It's for the life of that Phase 3 expansion.
Well, that's my point. Is so in 40 years from now, if you're fixing the roads that are damaged by their trucks, are you going to have enough money to do it on 12 cents a ton?
We anticipate that we will. In looking at the lifespan that these mines have been taking, think that their projections with regard to that use is approximately correct. Presently, the assumptions that we had based on their assuming 40-some years potentially for the life of the operation, that 12 cent per ton number was developed with the idea that it accounts for inflation over time and present value and what's it going to cost to repair a road not only today but 30, 40 years from now. And that's a number that we all agreed that would be a reasonable number, a fair contribution that would provide a reliable funding source for decades ahead.
I want to cut in. I completely agree with you. 40 years from now? Are you joking?
I mean,
do you have any idea what 40 years means in inflationary terms?
I don't, but to back that up, I don't think any of these mining places have made it more than 10 years total when they're mined out, honestly.
I mean, I can understand.
It's not going to be here 40 years from now. That mine is not going to still be mining 40 years from now.
Plus, is that 12 cents?
They're already through 2 phases in less than 3 years, 3.5 years, really. That's all it's been there.
And is that 12 cents right now a high number?
It is a high number. It's a number that right now is relatively significant. Obviously, it becomes less significant without an escalator over the years. One important thing to keep in mind that with other similar operations over the last several years where there have been a gravel operation, we've always recognized that when it comes to mines such as this, these are public roads. They're open for public use. As they go through the permitting process, it is recognized that the trucks and their hauling on the county roads in particular, which aren't always built up to a standard to handle that traffic, really experience a disproportionate amount of distress as a result of this traffic. So historically, when these site plans come in for approval, we've required certain improvements to that county road, and we will target areas that we think are going to require beefing up or additional work. Sometimes we're right, sometimes we're not, but it's always been a one-time payment. And that's traditionally what we've done. And we will upgrade a portion of the road only to find that once that one-time payment is made, years later, we have areas that are continuing to cause issues. And then it's on the taxpayer dollar to fix those. This approach, instead of taking a one-time sum, is we will have a regular revenue stream by which we can tap into that fund at our discretion. So the developer is going to be paying in annually, but the roads division can utilize its discretion to pull from that fund as deemed appropriate. And that's the benefit of taking this approach. Another problem, if we ask up front for enough money that we think it's arguably the...
Well, I'm not asking to ask up front. I think it's a good idea to take a payment a year. I mean, this works out to about $48,000 a year. I guess I'm asking for an escalator so that at least every 5 years, and to Jack's point, if they mine it out in 1 year and 3 years, that's fine. They say, you're still going to get 12 cents a ton, so that's a bonus to us. The quicker they get done, the better it is, but...
So when would you create the
I don't know.
That's
not my
3 years or 4 years?
Just put a CPI escalator.
There you go.
It's simple to do.
Right.
We had considered an escalator. That was one of the things that, in speaking with the chief roads engineer, our development review team, we had looked at that as, hey, should we be looking at this? And it complicated the public works agreement, and also the developer had expressed some concern with the escalator and figured out how we were working it out. Initially, the numbers that were tossed out were more in the range of 8 cents per ton. And one of the things when we did offer that escalator countered back at, well, how about this? How about if I give more? And 12 cents per ton is the number that we came up with. So that number was developed with escalation in mind.
I think it's crazy. I mean, look, I work with interest rates, and this just doesn't work after 8 years. I mean, if that thing goes on, this is going to be laughable after 6 or 7 years.
Well, they did I was at the planning commission and all the stipulations they redid almost a mile and a half of that road in asphalt up there on both sides through the intersection when they originally put the place in. So it's the area that the trucks travel the most is already beefed up beyond what we would do on a county road up that way, honestly. But I agree with you. I see the truck traffic out there. I mean, it's there, but they're mining it so fast. I mean, when you said 40 years, I'm thinking, none of the mines we've had in this county have lasted that long. Eddie Leaguers, rolling carbons, none of those have lasted that long in terms of mining, and this one's no bigger than them.
Well, according to them, they're gonna pull out 400,000 tons a year, 277,000 cubic yards a year is what that life of that thing's got on it.
But I think it's the last phase, right? Or is there a phase
Well,
four?
this is a large section. I mean, they're talking about, 40 years, and that's what they're anticipating is coming out of there.
Yeah, this phase 3 is
Those trees would be
presently the last phase based on the parcel that they own. In fact, it's another parcel that they acquired creates this phase 3. And so presently, based on that property, it would be the last phase. As Commissioner Wilson indicated, our experience has shown that the estimates they have, the projection with regard to how long that mine's going to last, for the last several operators, they've advanced forward much quicker than what their projections are.
But I don't know how they can do that when we've got them limited to about 74 trucks a day. It's one thing because I know we through some regulations, we limited when they can start mining, when they can start hauling, what goes out on the road. And in the past, it's been pretty much a free-for-all. And, as many trucks as you can get out of there in a day, and they're starting at 3 in the morning, and I think we changed some of those things for the constituents living up there. And, I don't know, I'm worried about the way this is, it would be great if we knew they were going to be done in 5 years. I'd say, okay, that's not a problem, but we're looking at 40 years, and what happens sometimes in mining and other commodities, if you can get that material cheaper somewhere else, we'll burn that up before we get to the stuff that's more expensive. So, 12 cents now versus 12 cents 6 years from now, when the price is really starting to jack through inflation, is a better number for them. I don't know,
I will withdraw my motion if you would like to table this until we can go back and ask
Table it,
about
go
an
back to
accelerator.
them and tell them we want an escalator.
I mean, that's not my forte, but
We can also look at it looks like they're gonna collect potentially up to $2.1 million over the life of the amount of gravel coming out of that. So they could also do an analysis of the cost to maintain the haul roadways.
There you go.
See if that would, potentially be suitable for coverage on those roadways. Because they have prescribed haul routes that are on the county portions that we would have to maintain over that time period. So we can.
that's what it's coming out to,
Yeah.
about $2 million.
Yeah,
If
$2 million.
they get that full amount for 40 years.
So I'm not going to table this, I'm going to withdraw it because anything that comes back is going to be a different concept altogether, so I will withdraw my.
I mean, this is not going to cause a problem. I think that we're in the negotiating and.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no rush, there's plenty of time to talk about it.
Okay, all right, take it back and work on it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, next one?
Yeah.
All right, our next item was actually the desk item we had for the Kent Island High School synthetic running track replacement contract award. And I'll let, we did receive one bid. I'll let Lee go ahead and cover this, but he's most familiar with the ATC Corporation that's provided this revised scope of work for the Kent Island High School track replacement.
So,
You want to make a motion first, or?
you want me to make it? I move to award the Kent Island High School synthetic running track replacement contract to ATC Corp. of Baltimore, Maryland, in the amount of $373,770, and authorize Director of Public Works to issue the notice of award and execute the contract on behalf of the County Commission.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion, questions?
So this is the one that we got the single price last time that was out of the budget range, correct?
Yep, that's correct. We just opened bids for this on July 28th, so just a couple weeks ago here. And we had, knowing that we are on a tight time frame, the idea being, let's try to get this done this season so it's ready for use for this upcoming spring track season. We did not hesitate, once you pass the budget with the funding for this, to put this out to bid. We had proactively reached out to several vendors. Now, it is a specialized area, but we reached out to 4. It was ATC Corp., Bainon, Miller Sports, and AstroTurf. 2 of the subcontractors did not respond to, or contractors, did not respond to phone calls or emails. Two, then, ATC Corp and Bainon had come to the pre-bid meeting. Both had expressed significant interest in the project. Both had asked questions. Ultimately, we received one bid. So in cases such as these, we reach out to the other contractors, hey, what happened here? And had a very good conversation with Bainon. They more or less indicated, we attended thinking maybe this is something we could squeeze in, but bottom line.
So we had a time frame on the contract that said the project needed to be completed by a certain time.
That's right. We put it a very
September. And that Bainon company, I know them, and they're very good, very reputable. So what really spooked the rest of them is they couldn't get the work done in that time.
Correct.
And so then that begs the question, the fact that why doesn't ATC have a backlog like that? So,
Well, could it be that they're possibly making us a priority because of the time frame? I mean, do you guys shift jobs around yourself because of a time frame issue that you can push one back and squeeze one in? Because, I mean,
you could be.
I mean, do you do that?
It's a possibility. Yeah.
Well, honestly, though, Jim, too, I'm seeing it a lot more now is material availability is you're having to have a different backlog because you may not be able to get a certain job done because you don't have available material. So now you have a gap in your schedule where you thought you were going to be busy, but you can't get something. And I'm seeing that everywhere.
Or
Plus,
when the
plus honestly, I think the economy is starting to slow things down I'm hearing a lot of talk within the industry that, there's not as much going out on the street for bid and people are trying to build a backlog right now. So. I'm glad they dropped $60,000 off it.
Oh no, the price is good. So I'm going to find out. Is this a total strip? What are they doing for that money?
Yep. So the original bid had prescribed a 2-inch mill and overlay, which conservatively is what we anticipated would be the likely scenario on renovating the base asphalt under that track. That was one of the things which increased the cost, and so we. Following the receipt of the bid, we looked at it very closely. We have since taken core samples of the track to verify that we have about 3.5 inches of asphalt surrounding there. Also looking very closely at the existing surface, it's accepting the running surface itself, which is just peeling and has failed. That base asphalt is in very good condition. There's perhaps a handful of longitudinal cracks, no significant alligator crack or anything. That really suggests to us that we have a good asphalt to begin with, about 3.5 inches. So the plan is, and we consulted with Bramble on this, come out, if all goes well, the anticipation is that we can mill off perhaps about an inch, inch and a half tops. That will allow us to leave an adequate amount of base to work on and still put down new asphalt. That's the important thing. It's not so much the condition of that base asphalt, but the fact that it is many years old, it has dried up, and if we don't put down a new layer of asphalt, what happens is that existing asphalt really pulls a lot of the
binder for the rubber.
Exactly, pulls that out of the running track surface and would reduce the life. So we want to get some asphalt down, and we're looking at about an inch to inch and a half.
And there's some bare spots. There are literally some bare spots on that track where you can see down an inch and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Down to a layer underneath. I mean, it's in pretty bad shape.
Yeah, so we, working with Bramble and with ATC, we nailed down a scope that we believe is going to provide really a reliable product at the end of the day. And again, yes, the push was let's get it done this season, because the alternative is waiting until next year, and there's never really a convenient time to do it. ATC has been very willing to, has expressed their dedication to coordinating closely with Public Works, public schools, and parks, so we can look at making sure that the field is available when possible in between stages for some present events, as well as coordinating.
That'll be a challenge.
Yeah, yeah, it will be, but we're ready to make that happen. So we're very optimistic that we got a good price and that we'll be able to get the track done and complete by the end of September, which would have minimal impact on varsity sports and things like that.
Steve, you got anything?
Motion and a second.
Any comment on ATC? Do you?
ATC is
ATC is actually the contractor that has done a lot of work for us. They
Right.
did the pickleball courts,
Right.
they've done basketball courts for us. They work, as Lee said, in coordination with Bramble as the paver, so, you know, those guys are really good on their deadline.
Okay.
They communicate great, as I told Lee. You know, I think that's what they do, and they explain the whole process about, really, there's just a short window when the entire track has to be closed down, and that's when they put down the rubber surface. It's 7 straight days of 7 layers on top of it. So you gotta have good weather, you know, 7 straight days, and you still have to have temperatures, you know, well above 55 degrees.
Yeah.
So that means nighttime is taken into consideration as well. So, you know, as the time frame you're on puts you right at September, mid-September to start putting down the rubber surface, if I remember correctly.
That's right.
So it's going to be a race, you know, as long as we have a good September.
Oh, you're worried
I think it should
around
be-
here that
should
weather
be
don't
okay.
get cool until November.
And you'll have those gates locked on those 7 days.
Doesn't mean they won't
But
climb
nobody else
over 'em.
has a key, nobody else has a key but you.
Yeah, I wish.
And also, it is my understanding that the ATC has done work for public schools as well, including repairs previously, some select patching to those tracks. They're also part of the National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance, so that adds further credibility to their being qualified to perform the job and having that established relationship.
All right. Everybody good?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, 5-0, motion carries. Thank you.
Get it done.
Hey, thank you for your diligence.
Well, now the pressure's on.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, thank you, Lee. Thank you, Steve. All right, Commissioners, if you want to turn to tab number 3, we can continue with our action items this evening. We've got another
Who's got respect?
half a dozen or dozen or so. First is on item 1 on page number 1 is Proclamation 22-41, Character Counts, Pillar of the Month, Respect.
Commissioner Dumel.
Yeah, I'll read that. Obviously, we don't have them here tonight.
You're not
But
going to sing the
Huh?
song for us instead?
Whereas Queen Anne's County was declared a character count community, and Queen Anne's County Local Management Board, also known as the Community Partnership for Children and Families, helped to introduce this wonderful initiative in the county. So it only makes sense that they be one writing it. Whereas the members of staff of the Local Management Board will enthusiastically support it today, nearly 23 years later. All the, which just is a caveat really quick, you think about 23 years, we've got kids that have graduated Kent Island High School and Queen Anne's High School that started as kindergartners with characters counts straight through and have been exposed to it every single year that they were attending schools in our county. And I just think that's probably one of the greatest things about the Characters Counts program. The member and the staff of the Local Management Board still enthusiastically support it today, nearly 23 years later. And whereas all recitals below were written by various Local Management Board members and staff, and whereas the first step in recognizing respect as a Characters Counts pillar is to respect oneself. And whereas others will recognize this character value and respect you for it. And whereas acceptance of others who are different from us is vital to a respectful and vibrant community, and whereas respect is earned and not given, and whereas because different people have different views as to what is respectful, whenever we can, we should take time to learn what respect means to others. And whereas Character Counts Pillar of the month of August is respect. And now therefore, because the Queen Anne's County's Local Management Board is the body that serves as the main entity within the jurisdiction to ensure our families have the services they need, they must make respect a part of every day and urge all citizens, program providers, and participants to model positive behavior that sets standards to demonstrate respect throughout Queen Anne's County. And now, therefore, the Queen Anne's County Commissioners do hereby designate the Characters Counts Pillar of the month of August to be respect. Good job, Local Management Board and its members.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Bumanel. Excellent, excellent. Okay, item number 2 on page 2 is a Board of Education transfer between major state categories. Essentially, their budget amendment. They have some transfers for capital outlay, $140,000 for some Dell servers and contract services from data networking, and the partial floor replacement at the Kent Island High School at $373,800. Transportation, $350,000 for increased fuel cost. Mid-level administration, $15,000 for increased communications in each of the schools, and $10,000 under administration also for legal fees.
So what's the deal with the flooring? Any idea?
We got.
Ms. Towers is here. We can ask her to come up. Jane?
Can I get a motion first?
Can I get a motion on that, please?
I move to approve the Board of Education's transfer between major state categories as presented.
Second.
Motion second. Questions?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having us.
Uh-huh. So I'm just curious, what is this, the flooring? Is that in the gym?
It is actually, Kent Island High School, it's actually the tile in the floors and some of the classrooms that needed repair.
Because it's not hardwood floors.
Correct.
Okay, all right, I was just wondering, okay. And you wouldn't have a sidebar, you know anything about the roof? What's going on with that roof project?
We can provide an update next month for you, for sure, on
I mean,
that.
it's been over 2 years now, and still no roof.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I had.
Any other questions?
Thank you for sticking around.
Oh, thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Okay, item 3 on pages 3 through 8 is the FY23 fireworks contract options. As we know, we've had our fireworks display at Kent Narrows the last several years. Zambelli has done that for us, done a wonderful job. We can lock in July 4th, 2023. If you want the same show, it's going to cost a little bit more, though.
It's going to be an
So
upcharge.
we have 2 options. Option 1 would be $35,000, which is fewer shell count than 2022, and if you want to go with the same shell count as this past year, it's going to be $50,000.
I move to authorize the Department of Parks and Recreation to execute the fireworks contract with Zambelli's for the July fireworks celebration for the amount of $50,000 to be held Tuesday, July 4th, 2023, with a rain date of Wednesday, July 5th, 2023.
I'll second that.
Really? Come on.
Some discussion, questions?
I know that when the fireworks shows in the past, a lot of the oohs and ahs, come with the grand finale at the end. But a lot of people go, wow, that show was like 40 minutes long, or it was 30 minutes long. It was great because it was a long show. How long is the show in reality from start to finish? Do we know?
It was 22 minutes.
Okay.
I watched.
I knew you'd know. It seemed longer than that. It's
the anticipation.
And Joan is like, and the months coming up, leading up to it.
So another question is, how many people were down at the, how many people do you think saw it?
Well, we can only really judge what was on site at the visitor center. I would say probably, a fair estimate is probably at least 2,500 or so. But we know that all the satellite parking lots were full. We noticed that as folks were coming in, we had a steady flow of people coming in from the time we opened the gate to get food. But those folks would take that food, and a lot of them would not stay. They would continue on back outside of the park to whether they're going on their boats or going to other places to watch the show. So that was really kind of hard to see people grab food and go, but you still had a steady flow that stayed in, and it was a cozier environment due to the construction that was down there. But I think that's what also made it good, because if it's a tight crowd, it's always I think better.
Figuring out we were only spending $20 a person for the show.
If you're looking at on site,
a numbers guy would break it down like that, sure.
And truth be told, and Joan and I have had this conversation since we've had communications with Zambelli. Is there's always the option we can go back and ask, because again, they're salesmen, so they're going to try to make the sale that they can. And the second option is we could always put it out to bid to see if we have another company that wants to come in and give us something comparable, because at least we have the number of shells that we're interested in, the time frame that we're looking
How
at.
much time do we have to lock in to get it for July 4th?
if we put it out to bid, it's 2 months later, do we lose the 4th?
I think we could, you'd probably turn around in 3 weeks, because there's not a lot of people that do fireworks, so, you're gonna basically do it, I think, by invite. And we've had people call Joan constantly about wanting to do, the fireworks show already, so she has that contact information there. So you could turn around in, 2 weeks if you want, do a 2-week bid, see what you come back with.
Joan?
Yes.
This is where you get to share your opinion, your professional opinion.
Truth be told, I just think that, one, we should go back to Zambelli's and kind of bargain with them. I mean, I think a mass jump to 35 to 50,000 is massive to me. That's just me personally. The other option is, I've been talking, I think there were fireworks in Sudlersville this weekend, and I think maybe we should look at them. There is an increase in that fireworks next year, but just to give us some options as to see what it is. Comparable to all of the other municipalities, I will say this, Queen Anne's County had the best show.
Oh, yeah. When you say municipalities.
I'm talking Talbot,
Okay,
Dorchester.
so other counties then.
Yeah, the only one we're running neck and neck with, we all know, is Rock Hall.
Really?
Yes, because they use Zambelli's. Yeah.
Yeah, they've been using Zambelli's
Bellies,
for a long time.
Yeah, Todd, I think Todd was the one that told me to go to Zambelli's. They've been using them for years.
I don't know. Do you have any idea what Zambelli's?
Yes, in Rock Hall.
How much, what do they spend?
They spend about what we do.
Right.
And the two of us work together. We don't, whatever days Rock Halls is, we do ours next. So next year, Rock Halls will be July 3rd. Ours will always be July 4th, because we get the same crowd.
And we can always reach back out to them to see if they got the same price increase as us.
Right.
Because, again, like I said.
I think
it's a
there's a
sales-
fiduciary
it's a sales
responsibility
business.
that
Jim,
to
would
at
you
least.
be interested in going ahead and doing it for 35, and then we'll see if they come back and we just, out, whatever the difference is, if they get
Well, I
it
look at-
150 or what?
$3 or $4 million went across our desk today, and I'm willing to spend $15,000 on July 4th.
I get it, but it's,
Additional, so, I mean, that's where I sit. And motion moved, if it's voted on, doesn't mean we can't change it. If they come back and say, we've got it for less money, or we found somebody else that does something better, present it, and go from there. So, even though we, if we approve it, doesn't mean they're gonna go to Zambelli's today and tomorrow and sign a contract, if we're looking at some other things.
And if I may, I do think that our attendance was increased due to the fact that Centerville did not have their
agree.
fireworks. And I don't know what the plan is for next year, but I do think that increased.
Because they were parked everywhere.
So let's go
So real
for
quick, Jim,
50
you
and
just
cut
got change-
Centerville off.
Okay.
Jim, you just gotta change your motion, because it does say execute the contract, so that doesn't give them any
Yeah, you
leeway
probably don't
with
want
our
to make a
vote.
motion to do it and then.
Right, we
you
can't take it back,
You
so.
won't be able to negotiate with Zambelli's
Just say
after
the
we make a
budget,
motion.
50,000.
Just table your
whatever,
motion
that's
until
all.
the next meeting.
Correct.
Can you get back to us in 2 weeks and we'll still be
Execute
okay?
anywhere in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you want to do up to, not to
Do your
exceed
thing.
50,000.
Go do your thing, Joan.
Yes.
Well, we want to lock in July 4th.
I read it,
though,
Jim, I
right?
read it.
We definitely want to lock in July 4th, so we can lock in July 4th, and then you can come back in 2 weeks with a final, best and final offer from Zambelli's in terms of the cost.
So how does the motion have to read?
Just
I'm
that
not gonna make
just
one.
that he wants to
Table.
budget $50,000 to have a fireworks display on July 4th. You're not naming any particular company at that point or anything.
Okay.
Or just table it and wait till, have them come back in 2 weeks.
All right, we don't have to lock into the 4th today. We can lock it in 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
It's tabled, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you, Joan.
Okay. All right, Commissioners, item number 4 on pages 9 through 12. This is the annual library certification letter for the state aid for fiscal 2023. This basically gets us the $200,000 in state library funds. Our match was well over $2 million this year with the expansion and what we funded the library. So this gives us the state aid so we need a motion to sign this letter to get those funds.
I move to approve and execute the certification for comparative local state library aid programs fiscal year 2023 form.
Second.
Got a motion, a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thanks, Commissioners. Item number 5 on pages 5 through 18 is a nuisance violation for 1118 Price Station Road to place a lien on the property so the county can be reimbursed for the cost of grass cutting.
So is this price based on the size of the lot?
It is based on what the contractor
Is saying I can do it? Okay. Because that number seems to be,
Probably a large lot, I guess, or it was really tall.
because we've approved these in the ballpark of 250.
Yeah, it's based on whatever the contractor did to.
It was worth 400.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's pretty big.
Is that a motion?
Second.
I need the motion.
I move that we approve the resolution to place a lien on the property located at 1118 Price Station Road, Price, Maryland, 21656 in the amount of $400.
Second from Jack. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners. Item number 7 on page 21 is a letter of support for the Rebuilding Together Queen Anne's County grant application to the Maryland Affordable Housing Trust. This is the old Christmas in April program. So they're looking for a letter of support for their program for civic organizations to get funding for the Christmas in April, now Rebuilding Together America, or Rebuilding Together Queen Anne's County grant.
I move to execute and submit the letter of support for the Department of Community Services, Division of Housing and Community Services application to the Maryland Affordable Housing Trust. Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, 5-0, motion carries.
Okay. That was actually item number 6, Commissioners, so that was the Housing Authority grant, So the next one is the letter of support for the Rebuilding Together Queen Anne's County, item 7, page 21.
I move to execute and submit the letter of support to the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development for the Maryland Affordable Housing Trust grant application. Second.
All right. Sorry about that.
All right, motion is, and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay.
Okay. Item number 8 on pages 22 through 39. This is the American Rescue Plan funds for General County Services. We are going to receive a total of about $9.8 million in American Rescue Plan funds. Half of these funds were received last July. We anticipate the second half coming in the next few months. The final rule does allow us to claim this as revenue loss, anything less than $10 million, and we are suggesting that at this point in time we collect some of this and book some of this as a revenue loss, approximately 50% of last year's allocation, and that basically falls into the capital fund balance. We can use it for general county services and county functions.
I move to approve the use of 50%, $2,446,480 of the ARPA funds received in FY22 on general government services.
Second.
All right, motion is second. Any discussion?
What do we do with the other half? Why are we only listing half of it?
At this point, we were going to book just so we could spend some money this fiscal year to show some drawdown on that.
I guess
we could put it all in there. I mean, that was
that was one of the options that I listed. I mean, we can use all of the funds that we received in 22 as revenue loss. We could use a portion of it. Whatever we don't spend in 22, we would defer, and then we would have until the deadline to use those funds. So we could use more next year. We just thought, or I thought, it would be good to go ahead and spend some of those funds in 22 and free up other revenue sources that otherwise would be paying for those.
I guess I'm confused then. Are we talking about this portion is from the first payment?
Yes.
Okay, so yes. This isn't the additional that's come, the additional 4 point whatever.
Correct.
Okay,
No, that's
now I understand.
That's 23, right? That would be considered 23.
We just requested those funds because we had to wait till exactly 12 months after we received the first amount. So we just requested them, and they should be within the next week or two.
So just so I understand this, we want to move this 50% and just use it as capital fund balance. The other 50% is sitting where?
It's still in the account.
In what account?
It's on the county.
It's in a grants
It's in
fund.
grants
It's
fund
in a
account.
grants fund, and we set up a specific project. So it's there, whatever we don't spend, we would defer and then hold it until next year. But the motion is really to use it on general government services. So it would be moved into the general fund, and it would free up general fund revenue sources that would otherwise be paying for those expenditures that we could then use for future expenses that we know will cost more in the future.
So would you drip it out of that, out of its own fund, or would you move it into the general fund?
We would have to move it in so that it would align with where the expenses are. That's how we would have to report it.
But you could have done this at any time. I mean, there's nothing pressing right now to do this now.
There's not. I mean,
Okay,
we
that's
just feel like
fine.
it's a good time to start, to
That's
start
fine.
spending
That's
down some
fine.
of this
I
funds
just-
because, I mean, who knows? I mean, we have till 2024 to obligate and 2026 to spend, but, you know, there's no telling that they start clawing some of this back if we don't spend some of it. You know, we want to, you know, and everything, you know, is costing more project-wise. So we just felt that this would be a good time to, you know, spend some
It
of that
really
money.
came up now because in the next few months, we'll be closing out the FY22 year and going through that audit. So if we were going to use some of the funds in '22, we really would have to make that
Be now.
decision now.
Right. Yep.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners. All right, Nicole, you can stay right there. We have a whole bunch of budget amendments here. I have to close out our action items. First one is budget
These are the
amendments.
times we wish you'd just do them all.
Item number 9 on page 40 is budget amendment CC 34 for the Sheriff's Office DARE grant, $90,000.
Move to approve budget amendment CC 34.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners. Budget amendment CC 43 is also for the Sheriff's Department Crisis Response and Intervention. This is grant authority, spending authority for an additional $13,776.
I make a motion to approve CC 43.
Second.
Got a motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Item number 11 on pages 42 through 53 is budget amendment CC1. This moves budget authority for all of the employee COLA and pay for performance funds from contingency to the general funds in each specific department.
Move to approve budget amendment CC 1.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion?
Yeah. I guess so we're talking about this is FY.
This is FY 23, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this, the total on this is about $1.5 million. And that's what a COLA and
the
pay for performance.
Pay for performance totals.
So when we're talking the next budget cycle, okay.
That was approved as part of the FY 23
Understood.
budget
No,
contingencies. Yeah, that's right.
I get it. I just want to make sure I understood.
We're just
that
doing it
correctly.
differently than I think we ever have in the past, right? Because typically in the past, it just went in as out of the
Jim's
general
just noting
fund,
dollar
now it's
amount.
going department.
No,
We just note the dollar
Yeah,
amount. so
it's
we
been in
keep that mental,
contingency when it's been funded as part of the budget. The reason that we do that and we leave it in contingency is because there's so many different accounts that have to be balanced to move it to the departments. And then, so we leave it in contingency, and then early in July or August, we go ahead and move it and allocate it to the various departments. So this is how we've done it the last several years.
Sounds good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners. Item 12, budget amendment CC2 is the pickleball allocation that we've received those grants for, so that would be a
I make a motion, we approve
Funds.
budget amendment CC2.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of pickleball? Aye. Any opposed? Okay,
The pickleball amendment?
didn't think so.
budget amendment CC3 on page 55 is for 2 Ford Transit vans that were purchased in September of '21, which have not been delivered yet. This provides that funding authority of $44,670 to the Parks Department when those arrive, so that we can purchase them.
Motion to approve CC3?
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion?
So any date on that? Any word?
Centerville date.
Ah.
But that's what they told us last year.
Okay.
Huh?
All right, moving right along.
Well, we
All
got
in favor?
I'm sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now talk and go.
Okay.
Now you can go.
Item 14 on page 56 is Budget Amendment CC4. Similar to the previous one, we have two vehicles for DES, one for animal control and one for DES administration. Same thing. Vehicles have been ordered, and they haven't been delivered yet. So this moves the money to next year, this year.
Motion to approve CC4.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. Budget Amendment CC5 is to finalize the contract services for the comprehensive plan update of $50,000.
I make a motion that we approve Budget Amendment CC-5.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. And Budget Amendment CC6, this is a significant grant that the Department of Aging received for a benefits counselor position. They usually get about $6,000 or $7,000. This grant now is up to $74,000. Provides another person, benefits counselor, to provide services for vulnerable elderly adults, adult abuse, nursing home advocacy, and for additional home delivered meals. So a whole host of things. Kathy is very excited about getting this additional money for
I make
various
a motion
programs.
we approve Budget Amendment CC-6.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you, Commissioners. And our final budget amendment is Budget Amendment CC7. This establishes budget authority to put some funds from the vehicle sale of a Department of Aging bus so that it can be utilized for other purchases that require MTA grant funding, because this was MTA grant dollars originally that funded the purchase of the bus.
Motion to approve CC7.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That's like a marathon, right?
Yes. Hopefully that'll keep us for a while.
Thank you, Nicole.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, Commissioners, we have press and public comments.
Anybody sign up? Anybody online?
Uh-oh, we have somebody.
Like to say something? Come on up.
Nothing?
Let's get the mic for our new reporter to introduce herself. Hold on, wait, Todd's got to read his speech now.
Want me to read it?
Yeah, we got to give her the full treatment.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Megan Locke. I am not from the Centerville. I'm from Annapolis, but I'm the new reporter for the Bay Times and Record Observer, and I just wanted to introduce myself, help put a face to the name, and I'm excited to work with you guys. I met Mr. Jack, like, literally my second day on the job.
Jack, boy, do I feel old now.
But I just wanted to introduce myself again, and I'm really excited to work with you guys and learn a lot about Queen Anne's County.
Very good. You went to Washington College?
Yes, I did in May.
Support your colors. Very good. Very good.
Well, welcome. Glad to have you
Thank
here.
you so much. Good night.
All right. Going to round table? Mr. Jack?
Go to the fair. I'm good.
Go to the fair.
Stevie?
Go to the fair every day.
You get a plug for the fair?
Oh, the bridge.
The bridge.
Permitting process for the redecking of the
Saw that.
eastbound bridge.
Yep.
So it's gonna happen. So probably not this fall, but next fall, they'll start taking out entire sections of
Jim,
the-
would that mean delays?
Well, it's supposed to be at
dropping
night.
in at
It's supposed to be
night,
at
right?
night, so we'll see. But the size of that crane they have here is impressive. So I've already asked them for willing to get out there and watch them one of these nights, pull a section out, put a section in, so.
You're
And then
going to
we'll
go
go
up
to
there and
the
watch?
fair.
Are you going to get up there and watch?
Absolutely.
Are you?
I think you're going to use the westbound one lane and two.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or 1 and 1 and leave a buffer in the middle.
You'll have me sign in purple?
All right. 4-H Fair, go. It's still going on right now. Go all week. Go Thursday. There will be a very interesting race occurring with some of the people from QACTV and maybe a special guest along their team.
I know who I'm not betting on. I did hear the odds, and I know who I'm not betting on.
Maybe some costumes. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen on Thursday?
Thursday.
But show up.
And we ask county TV guys, you just never know.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Go. We're done.
Pick them up.